What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with your top bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And it's an interesting week this week coming up. Next week as well, we have the middleweight spotlight, I suppose, is being shone on the world of the UFC. There was a few fights actually made this week in terms of middleweights, but we have obviously Israel Adesanya versus Imavov here, and then we have the title fight next week. So a lot to chat about middleweights over the next while, and it's been an interesting start to the year in terms of the betting, but also in terms of maybe looking ahead to betting, because there has been a few rematches already, but there's even talk of more. And I always find it interesting when we're talking about rematches, we're talking about betting on rematches, we're talking about adjustments, and we've talked a lot, especially with the Paul Hughes Usman and Magomedov fight last week. Like, I was doing a Q&A the other day, and someone was asking me about like what adjustments would be made and who would find it easier to make adjustments and all of that. And that's a very easy question to answer, but you can answer from both sides. So how's it going to work out? And that's the fun, I suppose, of betting, and that's the fun of deciding who to bet on and when to bet on them and why to bet on them. So there you go. Right, let's have a look at last week before we move ahead to next week. So we had a pretty good week last week. I suppose some of our bigger bets didn't hit. We had Paul Hughes at plus 390 as the Flier. There's a lot of people out there did think he won, so that plus 390 bet was, look, I think we'd all recognize it as a good bet. Like, it was a losing bet, so is a losing bet ever a good bet? But you know what I mean? At that price, you had to bet it. But it didn't come off, unfortunately. He got a draw on one card. The fight itself could have been a draw. I had it a draw myself, so yeah, interesting that one. The Nathan Kelly fight then, I think a lot of people thought that plus 200 was a great price about 3 minutes in, but Magomedov did a great job of getting a lot of shots in on Nathan late in the first, and by the time the second came, Nathan wasn't the same fighter and ended up getting finished, so that didn't hit. But our other three bets did. Ahmed Sami hit at minus 218, and our two parlays hit. So we had a KSW parlay, a Pegulski, a Tulsaev and Pribish at plus 150, that hit, and it was around even money, I think, by the time it came off. I had it at minus 118 last week. Nimkov, Ibrahimov, Mitchell, and Akhmatov, they all hit as well. So two good parlay bets there. So you can't, we can't give out about that. So overall, no Flyers hit yet, 2 weeks in. But from our 11 bets so far, we've hit 7. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So hopefully we'll hit a few more as we go into this week. Actually, have I added up right? 7 from 11, and then 0 from 2 on the parlays. Yeah, so there you go. Right, let's get to next week, and it's interesting what's coming up next week. Obviously, we have the UFC event coming up, but we also have an Oktagon show. So I have one bet from Oktagon, and the rest are from the UFC card, and it's a pretty good card, obviously, going down over in Saudi Arabia, where a lot of these cards, that are not pay-per-view cards, are turning into very good fight night cards, and this is another one. Again, like, if you look at some of the fights down through it, you're probably thinking like maybe we'd normally see one of them on a fight night card, where now we're seeing like 3 or 4 of them, and it makes for, I think, funner betting. It's good to have watched an awful lot of someone before you bet them. Maybe that doesn't necessarily mean the bets are going to be good, but I think most people will probably agree with that. So the first bet is exactly that. One of the people we've seen an awful lot, more than probably, Jesus, is there anyone who's fought more than him over the last 5 or 6 years? So it's Israel Adesanya at minus 157. When I clicked on and I saw the price, let me just talk to you about the price here for a second, because this price, I'm surprised it hasn't moved much over the last couple of days. Now, back a few weeks ago, it opened at minus 215, and as the year turned, it was around minus 188, right? But over the last few weeks, it has you know, it has gone from minus 170 to minus 160 to minus 157, but that's a very small type of drill. Like some places still have it minus 175. I was sure that this would be back out to minus 215 even more by the time this fight came around, by the time fight week came around. Now, there's still a few days. I'm recording this here on Wednesday, so there's still a few days until this fight comes. But I'm shocked that this price is held at this place where it is now. And as I said, you know, so it started low. So minus 215 to start. Then, let me just look here, minus 173 on January 19th after going, you know, minus 188 and stuff like that. Went down, went to minus 180 again, and up to minus 175 again now. So a lot of fluctuations, a lot of changes. And I honestly, I'm not too sure why. Like, Adesanya, he's 35 years of age, right? He's been knocked out once in his career. Okay, he got submitted last time out, but he went 4 rounds, and he wasn't blown away by any means in that fight. It was a good close fight. You know, before that against Sean Strickland, okay, he got hit hard at the start of that fight, but he beat Pereira before that, was winning against Pereira before that, and that, he was on a streak before that. Like I think Adesanya is one of those guys, right? Who, and I've said this isn't analysis after the fact. I have said this during his reign all the time. I think the analysis of Israel Adesanya has been very, very poor. I think people kind of went, and here's an analogy, right? But maybe people across the water mightn't get this, but there's a very famous footballer who actually went across the water, Wayne Rooney. And when he was young, he was always talked about as he's the next Pele. He's 16 years of age. He's going to be a great. He's going to be Messi or Ronaldo. And he never quite reached that. So everyone was like, he's overrated, he's not that good. But Wayne Rooney went on to be like one of the top scorers ever in the Premier League, Man United's top ever scorer, England's top ever scorer at the time. This guy had an unbelievable career. So by the time it comes to the end, because everyone's been saying he's been overrated all the time, now he's actually a little bit underrated when you think about it afterwards, right? I think Adesanya's a little bit like that. Like people are saying, he's better than Anderson Silva, he's the greatest middleweight of all time, he's one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. And to me, he was never that, right? I thought Adesanya had all the skills, but there was a little bit of thing lacking. There's a bit of mentality lacking. There was a bit of, I don't, even though he speaks very well, I don't think Adesanya ever fully believed in Adesanya. And it dragged him down at times during his career, even when he was winning, like the Cannonier fight, people walking out in the 4th round type of thing, right? But at the same time, a fantastically brilliant fighter. A really, really talented guy. And talent is the word there. He has more talent than anything else. And often it's the other way around. Often it's guys are more talkative or they find a way or something like that. But this guy is a real, real talent. And with that said, right, that's a reason why he was talked up for a large part of his career. And now I think, because he's lost a few fights in a row, he's lost 3 of his last 4, people are thinking, he's no good. He's useless. He lost to 3 guys. No, he still has that talent. Is he as good as people made out throughout his whole career? No. Is he bad? Absolutely not. He's still a fantastic fighter. And is he better than Nasruddin Imavov right now? I would still say yes. Like, you look at Imavov, how is Imavov going to beat Adesanya? As I bite the side of my mouth there. He's a good all-around fighter, Imavov. He's plenty of submissions, plenty of knockouts, plenty of decision wins. He's only lost 4 times. All of them have been by decision. Strickland, Phil Hawes back in 2021, and he's, losses before that were back in 2017, 2016, long time ago. He's a good fighter. But, what is he? He was, for a long time, I used to look at him as this wonder boy, outside fighter, trying to be the next Lyoto Machida type of thing. But then I think he adjusted his game. He's become more of instead of an outside fighter, he's become more of a just outside range fighter. Rather than karate range, he's now at, kickboxing range or Muay Thai range or whatever you might want to call it. And if you fight at that range against Israel Adesanya, unless you're Alex Pereira and have the power of a small elephant, you're going to be in trouble. You're playing right into his game. And is he going to fight that way, Imavov? I think so. Like, he can wrestle. I've seen him doing a bit of wrestling. Obviously, he's a few submissions there. But Adesanya's takedown defense is actually really good. Okay, if he goes in there and, he fights, Drick has timed it very well, or, as did Blachowicz. Blachowicz is obviously a very good wrestler as well. Is Imavov as good a wrestler as those lads? I know he comes from the part of the world where there's a lot of wrestling. He's from and a lot of France with obviously the judo and all of that, and he's in his background from Dagestan. But he was more of a stand-up fighter. He's more from the Salikov background and the Abdulmanap background. Let's put it that way. So again, there is wrestling there, but is he going to do it? He comes from the MMA factory as well, and we've questioned many times down through the last few years, like, the MMA factory, is it the best in terms of game planning as a camp? I wouldn't say so. No, maybe he's training somewhere else. Maybe he's coaching somewhere else. I don't know on that one. But do I trust someone of Imavov's skill set with the MMA factory behind him to beat and break down someone like Israel Adesanya? No, absolutely not. Again, let's put it here. You stand someone in the middle of the cage against Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds at kickboxing range, and a person with not the best power in the world, not the best wrestling in the world, can they beat Israel Adesanya? Anyone, right? In MMA, unless they're Alex Pereira or maybe some wild kickboxers out there. No, I don't see it. I really don't see it. Now, there is one issue. Adesanya's 35, right? But again, I don't think he's an old 35. I don't think, a lot of people think because Adesanya's lost 3 of his last 4, he's not as good as he once was. What I'm saying is he's not as good as people made out he was, but he's still very good. I actually don't see any degradation in Adesanya's game at all, really. The problem is, will we see it here? Will we see him look old? Will we see him be beyond his prime here? And if we do, he could very well lose because, Imavov is a good fighter. Is he as good as Adesanya? No, but is he good enough to beat an 80% Adesanya? Absolutely, yes. But I think Adesanya is going to be gunning for another shot, whether that's at middleweight or light heavyweight. We know as long as Alex Pereira is there at light heavyweight that if Adesanya was to have one fight up there, he is well able to have a fight against Alex Pereira. The UFC would absolutely love that. So this isn't a case of, right, okay, so like the fight we have next week, the champion and the ex-champion have both beaten Adesanya. You kind of think to yourself, like, oh God, if I was in that position, I'm 35 years of age, what's the point of still fighting? No matter who wins, I'm not getting a fight with him anyway. It's going to be Chimaev. And even then, like, what's waiting for me then? Fuck Chimaev? But I still think the elixir of Alex Pereira being there is a real motivation possibility for Adesanya, and I think it'll be enough to see him over the line here. So I think that price is ridiculous, -157. I thought Adesanya might be -300 for this fight. I'll be honest, definitely betting on that. Right. Next bet I'm going for here, I kind of went back and forth on this bet. I was looking at it as no, I the other day I changed my stance in the middle of the show to to a different pick. Now, I'm not gonna do it here. I'm gonna stick with my pick. So I'm gonna go for MVP to win against Sharamagomedov, and he is +150. Now, the other bet I was going to give was MVP to win by decision, and I was going to change it and make it my flyer, but it's just not big enough. What is it? Let me look here again. It's +290. That's just what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. Yeah, +290 best price. I have a bigger one. I'm not as confident in my flyer, but that's what flyer is about. As I said, we're going to go big with our flyers this year. We're going to go big with our flyers, but I'm going to go for MVP to win here, and I'll tell you why. Right? I've constantly picked against Shara Bullet, and up until the last fight, I was I didn't waver from that much. No, I did waver after the last fight. I thought he fought very well against Armen Petrosian. Look, that knockout was absolutely unbelievable. There were periods throughout the fight though where Petrosian had good parts, and you could see where he could have won the fight. The thing about this one is you're going in here against MVP, who is a real interesting style matchup. Now, I remember I did one of the Sharabulis fights here before and talked about maybe him going for takedowns, and a lot of people in the comment section were like, what are you talking about? This guy never goes for takedowns. And it turns out they were right. Now, there's been bits and pieces of takedowns in his game before, right? So, to those people who threw that at me after that, I'm joining in with you right now. And I'm saying that Shara's not going to go for a takedown. And he's going to try to fight MVP on the feet. And is that enough? Is that enough for me to pick MVP plus 150? I think it is. Like, you throw anyone in there with MVP, almost anyone, nearly to a man, and you give me plus 150 on him, and anyone that I think is going to strike with him non-stop for 15 minutes, I'm picking MVP all day in that fight. Because this guy won't get hit. He's so elusive. Like, when did he ever get hit? He got hit against Douglas Lima when he slipped and Lima threw like a vaulted fucking ground uppercut while he was on the ground. That's the only time he's ever been knocked out. Like, Ian Gary grappled him, Logan Soley grappled him, everyone grapples with him. Is Shara going to wrestle with him? You think he should, as a well-rounded mixed martial artist, you think he should wrestle with him. But to all the people, maybe you've convinced me, maybe he won't. And like, I was thinking about this recently, and like even a bigger, wider talk about mixed martial arts and the meta game of mixed martial arts. I feel people like Shara, or like Ankalaev when he goes into Pereira, you expect them to change up their game and wrestle against strikers who are so good, like Ian Gary did. But they just don't anymore. Now, Ian Gary did, granted, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not do it. Right? It feels like a large part of the metagame of MMA today is sticking to your game. Not to give you another soccer analogy, but if you're watching Man United recently, you know all about sticking to your game and where it can, sticking to it so bad that it can kill you. Not figuratively, not literally, but you know what I mean? So, if Shara Bullet sticks to his game and strikes an awful lot, MVP is going to do what MVP does. He's going to kick the leg from the outside. He's going to jab. He's going to come in and out. And he's probably not going to get hit. Like, as good as and all the Shara is at hitting people, he hasn't fought anyone near the level of MVP. Petrosian's a good stand-up kickboxer. Bruno Silva is not a bad fighter. But yeah, there's no one close. No one close. I know the big issue here, maybe MVP up at 185. How's that going to hurt or help him? I actually think it'll help him. He won't have to cut any weight. He's going to be even faster than those guys up there. Yeah. Now, again, me and my friends in the comment section might be wrong, and maybe he will. Sharabullet will come out and wrestle him. But even then, MVP has had many people wrestle him down through the past. I even think the biggest wrestling of all, Logan Storley, didn't. I thought he won that fight. There's arguments to say he won the Ian Gary fight. Not as strong. He didn't win that fight, but he wasn't a million miles either. So I'm going MVP. I'm going for him to win the decision. Plus 290 if you like the decision, but the straight up price plus 150. I like that an awful lot. Right. Next bet here is my one bet from Oktagon for this week. And I'll run through some of the prices afterwards with you. But I'm going to go for Matous Kohout against Shida Akipa. And this one, and Kohout is minus 110. The reason I'm going for him is these are both kickboxers. This is going to be a stand-up fight. And, okay, Kohout doesn't have the best record in the world in MMA or anything like that. Akipa doesn't really either, but I just think that looking at some of Kohout's fights, looking at some of the lads he has fought, he's fought Nicholas Stoltz. Okay, he lost that fight, and he fought Ligorski as well. Okay, he lost to him. He's actually fought him twice, but there's good amount of rounds in there, and he's a lot of experience, and he has knocked guys out in there. Whereas, Akipa is newer to the sport. You know, he's only done it kind of post-pandemic. He lost two of his last three and got, you know, taken down and kind of beaten up by Matthew Bonner, if memory serves me correct, in one of them. I don't think he's as big a power puncher as Kohout, and a fight that's going to, in my opinion, be a stand-up Rock'em Sock'em Robots type of one. I just like Kohout. I think he's, you know, he's kind of smaller stature in there. I think he's going to be able to get to the body, maybe push him against the cage, win there. Like he's a gritty type of guy. Again, a lot of losses in his career, no doubt about it. But I think the level of guy he's been in there with fought an awful lot in Oktagon as well. You know, I think let me just look at this here. Is he the favourite? It's very close. I believe they're both very, very close coming here. Yeah, actually, Akipa, that's kind of turned in the last year too, has it? It has. He was actually plus 110. Now he's into minus 120. So Akipa is the favourite, but Kohout at minus 110. I really, really like that price, and that's bet number 3 of the week. But let's talk about a couple of the other bets from Oktagon. I was going to give you a double. The parlays went well last week. Ingazeg and Peñas. It's only about minus 250, I believe, so not great, but they're both big money. They're both around the minus 600, a little bit lower, a little bit higher. One, if I was to give you a bit of a flyer on this card, Damian Lapalus is plus 225 against Lamali Eskiev. Now, you know, Lamali's a very, very good fighter, no doubt about it, and he probably should be just about favourite, but favourite by that much, not in my opinion. I like that plus 225 there. A lot of people talking about this Deniz Ilbaz. I know Brian had some good things to say about him. He's a minus 120 favourite there. So yeah, interesting stuff over at Oktagon. Kamil Onisheshuk, who's been around for an awful long time, he's minus 120. He's a opponent Hyatt Kevin, and he's kind of a newer guy, and a lot of people talking about him as well. A minus 110. I think that's probably a good bet on him as well there. So take a look at some of those Oktagon bets if you fancy as well. Right, let's go back to the UFC. This bet, I couldn't ignore this price. I couldn't ignore it. I'm going for Mayra Bueno Silva at plus 195 in her fight with Jasmine Jasudavicius. Bueno Silva's down at 125 here. She's coming off of a couple of losses. Lost to Macy Chiasson, who's, you know, basically a 145er. And then lost the title fight where she almost won, you know, and how many times have we talked about it? The almost winning a title fight is very hard to follow up with. And the reason I'm going for this, and you know, Jasudavicius is on a great run at the moment. She's won her last 3 in a row. Beat Lipsky and Klein. Had 1-2 before that after, you know, sandwiched by the Tracy Cortez. Loss at UFC Fight Night 227. I just think the style matchup here is an interesting one. You know, we've seen a lot of takedowns and top work from Jasudavicius, especially in that, you know, that Fatima Klein fight, even the last one out, you know, that's how you beat Lipsky. We all know that, and she got the Bravo choke on her there. She's some very good submissions, you know, 3 submissions in her career, 2 of them in the last 3 fights. But I think the issue with that is when you're taking a fight to the ground, you know, working submissions, looking for submissions yourself. Bueno Silva is an excellent submission artist. You know, 7 wins by submission in her career, never been submitted herself. You know, remember what she did to Holly Holm, Lena Landsberg, almost submitted Raquel Pennington. I think if Jasudavicius fights on the ground, it's a very, very, very dangerous game. And I think Bueno Silva had a good game before, even before the Chiasson fight. She had an increasingly good takedown game, trip game, get the fight to the ground game. Will that even be better at 125? Can she make 125 first, I suppose, is the biggest issue. But if she can, and if she looks healthy, and if she's the bigger fighter in there, you know, Jasudavicius is a lot of the time the bully, like the bigger fighter. If she's not, right, or even if she is, if she takes Bueno Silva down, like, what are you doing there? Like, what is taking Bueno Silva down the smartest thing to do? If Bueno Silva takes her down, you know, I think there's a lot of pitfalls here. Maybe I'm overestimating Bueno Silva. Like, I'm looking at the submission price here on Bueno Silva. It's plus 700. Do you know what? Change it up. This is I'm changing it up here. This is my flyer. I'm not giving you Bueno Silva straight up. Bueno Silva plus 700 to win by submission. That's my flyer. That's that's like 100% my flyer. Why am I even talking? Like that's 100% my flyer. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Like I was looking at that earlier on. I was like, is that too good to be true? Is that too good to be true? You know, and yeah, I don't know. It's not too good to be true. It's not too good to be true. Like I think I think this fight is made for Bueno Silva. I really, really, really do. I think she, like, what age is she? 33 years of age. She's not that old. She is, her game plays into the game of Jairzinho's. Jairzinho's game plays into her game. Again, if we go back to the thing of like, okay, we go back to the meta game of MMA where people just play their own game, right? Let's say Jairzinho does that. Like, what is she gonna do then? What is she gonna? How is she gonna beat her? Is she gonna just wrestle around her? Maybe, but I think it's more likely she gets submitted. I wonder if she just stands with her. If she doesn't, well, I think the biggest issue with just standing there with her is Bueno Silva's takedowns and trips and stuff have been very, very good. She goes and gets submitted again. So there you go. I've enough explaining done. Bueno Silva by submission plus 700. Right, the flyers usually last. I'll give you one more bet. So I'll tell you what my flyer was going to be, right? Because I've an awful hankering for do you know what I've hankering for? A long heavyweight fight. We haven't seen one in a while. Just sweating, two lads kind of falling over each other, and I feel like we might get that with Sergei Pavlovich against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I'll tell you for why, right? You look at Pavlovich's record, 18-3. 17 of them have been finished, 4 decisions, right? He'd no decision in 7 years until his last fight. Lost the decision there, he lost 2 in a row. Only 4 decisions for Rozenstruik. Let's have a guess. When was the last one? His last fight. These two lads, I feel like they're playing a little bit safer recently. They're waiting. They're kind of like, oh, you know, maybe we won't go too far out. Maybe we won't burst ourselves out of there and get finished and, you know, be real tired and stuff. So that was going to be the flyer. A plus 480 fight goes to decision. I'm going to roll it back a little bit and I'm going to go for the over a round and a half, which is a bit better. A plus 180. So that's still a good price. I think these two boys are going to strike with each other. But I don't think, like, the overarching feeling of Jairzinho Rozenstruik as a fighter is watching him back up and just get absolutely flattened by Francis Ngannou. I don't think Pavlovich will do that. Like, if he knocks him out, it'll probably be with one big punch or maybe a bit of a combination of them. I don't think it's him going to be backing and backing and backing. And Jairzinho, Jairzinho's more of like a, you know, he knocks you out with, you know, I love the phrase "death by 1,000." What is it? Death by 1,000 cuts. I described Adesanya the other day as death by 100 cuts. Jairzinho's maybe death by 10 cuts, right? That's maybe how he fights. I don't really see him doing that against Pavlovich either. I think they're both kind of going to try to get at the end of a jab. More so Jairzinho. I think Pavlovich will look for the big right hand. I think Jairzinho, his defensive work is really good. He's only been knocked out twice in his career, as I said. Once against Volkov, and obviously the other against Francis Ngannou. So I think it could be a bit of a longer fight. I think it could go on a bit, and that over a round and a half plus 180. I think it's good now. Cue the 10-second knockout, but yeah, there you go. Those are the 5 bets for the week. Anything else on the card? Not really a whole lot, to be honest. We gave you the straight up prices of the top 2. The Rozenstruik Pavlovich fight plus 250, plus 265 actually, best price for Rozenstruik, minus 310 the best price for Pavlovich. Said Nurmagomedov minus 160 against Vinicius Oliveira plus 140. Yeah, I'll probably go for that there. This Can Offaly, I was impressed by him recently. He's plus 250. Naimov is very good, and I've bet Naimov multiple times here. Do you know what I kind of like here with Naimov? The price to win the decision is plus 125. I think that's a good price on Naimov here, who's best price minus 295. The Farazia and Mike Davis fight, that's a really, really good fight. I do like Mike Davis. Minus 140 is a good price as well. Gassiev Peterson. Again, Shamil Gassiev can be good, and other times he's not. Thomas Peterson. I think Thomas Peterson is one of those guys who has an upside, but I don't know is the upside going to come in the UFC when you're meeting guys who are so much maybe more experienced than you. Plus 295. I'd bet that before I bet the minus 375 on Gassiev, I'll tell you that. Again, another bet that really stood out to me here is Terence McKinney at minus 455, minus 500-ish. No. Damir Handzovic is a good fighter. If you were to give me a straight up pick, I'd probably go McKinney, right? But a plus 375 for Damir Handzovic, yeah, I'm probably going for that. Can you trust Terence McKinney? I don't think so. Like, that's kind of the top and bottom of the UFC card there. So let's recap the bets again. Adesanya minus 175, MVP plus 150, Matous Kohout over Oktagon minus 110. We are going for the plus 180 Pavlovich versus Rozenstruik over 1.5 rounds. And then we're going for the Flier Mayra Silva to win by submission at plus 700. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Please bet responsibly. And we'll see you all next time.